Good afternoon, everyone. I haven't had a radio to look at on this channel for a long time, and this one was given to me by a friend. This is Panasonic, and if you've been around my stuff, you know I quite like Panasonic portable radios. I haven't looked up the date of this one, but it's got a bit of 70s, maybe early 80s, but I'm thinking 70s feel to it. Late 70s, it's got an LED tuning indicator, so that would put it in the second half of the decade probably. It's got a really neat dial, tone, volume control, AC, battery. The handle has been broken off. I might Dremel that down just to make it a table radio. That wouldn't be the end of the world. Antenna's good. The band switch is in the back. That does not feel great. The batteries are a bit of a disaster. So we'll be trying it with the power cord, at least at first. And then this is probably recoverable, but we don't know if there's damage inside because of it. Put on AM. I did test this briefly and it was quiet if I remember correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in and we'll see what's going on with it. It could very likely just be, a dirty band switch, power switch issues, right? There may not be that much to go into. This oxidation, if it's gotten up into any of the board, which it is right at the bottom and over here, so it might be okay, but if it has, it could be a problem. And of course, we'd be looking for the usual stuff, bad capacitors, and that sort of thing. Interestingly, this takes 3 C-size batteries, which is actually like a pretty good compromise, but that tells us it's running on a lower voltage. Do we have, because normally you'd expect to see, well, this would be 4.5 volts, so yeah, 5 watts. We've got a UL listing. No French, so this was bought in the US. This is an American model. We've got a serial number, and we can see the back of the speaker in through the back of the body. The battery compartment, I guess this is supposed to be for folding your cord in. Place AC cord and earphone here. Earphone, did it have an earphone jack? Oh, there is an earphone jack. And the older style small mono plugs. So must have shipped with an earphone. That's definitely pushing it into the 70s, not the 80s. All right, so let me plug it in. We'll see what we can hear, and then we'll take it apart. And the first step would be to clean all the switches. I am interested in how this dial works. I'm curious as to whether they've used a dial cord or whether they've done it with like a worm gear or something. Feels like a dial cord, but I'm just curious. Later radios, there are often, I have a clock radio, for example, that uses a worm gear to drive the dial, which I think is an interesting design. All right, back in a moment. Okay, power cord on. We'll put it on AC and see if we hear anything. Scratchy volume control. It was on AM. So we have amplifier power anyway, and we have power. Tone control. So turn that down a bit and play with the let's put an FM. All right, hold it up to my ear. Held up to my ear, I hear nothing but hum. So first guess would be some of the capacitors are dead in the radio circuit. The first one to check would be the one that goes to the volume knob, which for whatever reason seems to be the most common one to go out and cause a quiet radio or a silent radio. That doesn't mean that the rest aren't probably bad too, but that would be the first one to look at. So let me unplug this and get out an appropriate screwdriver. Let's have a hook. Phillips. So we'll unplug it first. One of the interesting things I note is it says, caution, do not use rechargeable batteries. Presumably the voltage isn't high enough on the batteries of the time, which would be nickel cadmium. But that also, the concern about rechargeable batteries, I remember them becoming really popular in the early 80s, but maybe that's just when I was a kid and noticed it. So that pushes, in my mind, that pushes its date a little farther. Maybe we can see a date notice inside, or maybe I can find something online. We'll try this screwdriver. It's the first one that... No, that's too big. Get a cloth. Might be nice to put on. This is hardly free of scratches. It'd be nice to have something down in front. Let's see. What we got? Try that one. That's the right size. I'm not going to take the knobs off yet. Oh, I'll take the side knob off. But yeah, even that one, it doesn't look like it's required to remove it. Certainly if I get it working and have the want to clean them up, I'll take them off in the front for that. Okay, I think that's all screws. Shake them out. Panasonics often all have the same length screws in them, which is a great improvement over Sony that seems to like to use as many different kind of screws as possible. Look at that, all the same. Makes life very easy. And here we go. Let me just unplug the antenna here, and we can see the radio out in front of us. So let's start with the power supply because we can see it here. We have an enclosed transformer, diodes, two ceramic capacitors, another small ceramic capacitor here. Oh, there are 4 diodes inside there. So we've got a rectifier, smoothing capacitors, ceramic, TDK, 103px2. So I'm not quite sure. 103s presumably. So we have our pots here. There's a reasonably decent sized ferrite, tuning condenser. This is probably the FM section in the can. This would be AM. All discrete transistors. Should we count them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is probably the output. There's the volume control. 10 transistors. I might have missed some. Relatively, I mean, electrolytic's not a huge ton. Oh wait, these might be these are probably the output transistors here. So 12 transistors. Looks like we've got 2 transformers in it. So yeah, fairly standard-ish design, I guess. I don't know that much about these sorts of things. Okay, so what the next step is, oh, decent sized speaker, all right. So I think what the next step is going to be to get this board out and have a look at the other side. And then we'll probably power it up and see if we can find out which of these capacitors is going to the center of the volume control. Assuming I've got that right. Unless this is the volume control, in which case it's probably that one. To remove this board, it looks like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 screws. This screw, I think, is keeping the dial on, so we'll be careful about taking that one off. In terms of my question is, it does work with a dial cord, and it's got the usual sort of sideways pins. It's interesting that that one's metal. So, pretty well-made radio, like you'd expect from Panasonic. That was the antenna connection that I removed coming in here. So, the most likely problem here, it could have a bad transistor on it, which might be beyond me, but these are fairly modern packaging. So, I'm hoping that's not the problem. But it could be anything. But most likely it will be one of these capacitors will have dried out. And this has got to be maybe more smoothing on the, where's the power coming in? Here maybe? It's coming around this way, comes up, I'm not sure. So we really need to have a look at the other side of this board. So let's just pop this up, pop these knobs off. All right, I will try to get something plastic to pry those up with. They're very stiff. Well, I'll do this off camera because I want to do it slowly and carefully. And then we'll take the board out and I'll come back around then. Okay, I've removed all the screws, I think. That one didn't quite come up. All the same, again, thank you Panasonic for that. So this does look like it's coming up. I'm not sure how we're going to do with the dial here, but I think we might have to remove. Let's pull out. There. Oh, okay. So we'll see. So it's the style that where the tuning condenser, the tuning capacitor, fits into the dial, which I've backed all the way off clockwise on here. And I'm not sure which way that turned it over here, so I've all the way anti-clockwise on that one. So, no, that makes sense, right? All the way clockwise here. So, yeah, and that fits in here. So as long as we keep that upright and don't touch that, everything should remain okay. So now we can see the back of the board. We'll see if there's anything of interest here. We see another capacitor that's been added here and there. It looks like there's another one that's been added underneath there coming on these two legs. ceramic, so they're probably fine. Another one here. There's an inductor, and I don't know what's under here. It's something that they felt the need to put a can on. Yeah, so this is the back of the FM circuit, and they felt a need to put a bit of shielding on the back of that. That's presumably connected to the ground plane or something. Looks like it's coming up there, like that. Now we've got plus and minus marked off of that. So that's maybe showing us where the power is coming in. Looks like it's soldered in down here. That's the tone control, I think. I'll have to look at the front of it again because the power isn't on there. The power switch is up here, right on this separate plastic piece that has, we can leave that back in place, but that's got the dial and the power switch on it on the piece of nylon, which is yellowed with age. That still seems pretty good. That's nice that that section is separate. And we have, below that, there's the LED, which is supposed to show that things are tuned in, and that's held in place with a little metal bracket. So, pretty nicely made, pretty well thought out. I haven't found anything with a date on it. We've got some numbers, RUP 6837A, and the other one is KPC, no, KPC or G, I'm not sure. C probably, 194HB, if that means anything to anyone. So what I want to do is first have a quick look under here, and the volume is on the right. So this is the volume pot, and so this is the center conductor to the volume pot, right? This one here seems to be onto this leg here. There's the center, and this one, well, will go, one of them will go to ground. And one will go to, and one will go to signal. And then the positive should, the center tap should be, so what we're really looking at is what is connecting to this here. So there's a jumper there that goes off to one of these resistors, I think. And then there's that. So that is probably the signal going in to this volume potentiometer. So I think the thing to do would be to give it power. I'm going to use this again. I'll keep my fingers away from anything over here, but keep in mind this is an isolated transformer, so the secondary will be, 5 volts probably, right? This should be safe for most definitions of safe because of the transformer and the fact that it's an enclosed one. Presumably solved a lot of the safety concerns when these were put together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a a, sorry, I'm just looking at something and realizing I've kind of lost my way a little bit around this, but that's okay, I'll figure it out. But then I'm going to, yeah, this right here. Let me put a mark on that so I don't forget it. But what I'll do, what do I have? I've moved things around on my desk and can't find things that well. Let's, so this should be the negative side of the capacitor there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put power to it. I'm going to hold a capacitor across there and see if that's if that gives us some signal back. So let me find a capacitor and we'll be right back. Okay, so it's plugged in, power's on. You probably won't be able to hear that, but I can hear some noise from the volume control. If I read the other one properly, it's 0.1. A 1 is the first one I grabbed, so we'll try that. So definitely that capacitor's open. Let's try tuning. I'm not sure if I'm at FM or AM. So that capacitor is definitely bad and needs to be changed. So what I'll do is I'll heat up the soldering iron and we'll change that one out. I will try to put the proper one in and then we'll take it from there. One thing at a time. The other thing I'm going to do while I've got it is I'm going to spray all the various switches, especially the band switch, which is sometimes an issue, but there's no question that capacitor is bad. The radio is unplugged, the soldering iron is warming up or should be warm, and we'll try changing that capacitor. Try to move one thing at a time, I think, for this. I don't really want to spend any more time and effort on this than I need to. It's just like, I'd like to get it working because it's a cool radio. Undoubtedly the best practice would be to change all the capacitors in it, but I don't really want to, so let's do them one at a time. So I'll try to get my finger on it over here, and I'll see. Yep, this is not the best tip on the iron, but I'll just rock it out. And there we go. .1 microfarad at 50 volts. I'm not even sure I've got anything. Here's a 1 microfarad. Let me clean up that one hole and see if we can. Other one's open. I'll need some solder wick or something for that. Let's see what I've got here. Well, I could try my cheap and nasty solder sucker and see if it works. That worked just fine. So there we go. So I marked the negative side, right? You can see the negative is marked on that. The negative is marked on that. I'm going to go see what I've got in the way of capacitors, and we'll put one in and see how it works. So if I go through my capacitor supplies, the closest I have is 0.47 So that's what we'll use. Just these are quite difficult to remove from the tape. This will probably get cut. Yeah, I didn't. I assume that the machine that places these things, the pick and place machine, has a way of removing them from the plastic, or tape in this case. So this one is 0.47 at 100 volts, which is, I mean, even the 50 volts is excessive. This has got to be a 5 volt output power supply. So we'll get this into place. I will extract it from here and we'll see if that makes any difference. So here's the capacitor. We'll get it up through here. I don't think you're going to be able to see this very well, but up through there like that. There's negative. That was marked. We'll just give that a little bit of solder. Again, not the best tip. There we go, that looks better. You can definitely see how the lead-free solder looks different. And I don't have the best glasses for this. I can barely see what I'm doing. All right, that looks better. Okay, let me switch glasses so I can see how bad my joints are here. This one I don't much like. That one's all right. There we go, that's better. Okay, so now we're going to try power, apply power, and see what we've got. I'm back in a moment. All right, so this is very interesting. That didn't make any difference. And the sound that I was hearing before when I touched it is because my fingers, or if I touch the outside of the capacitor, will it do the same? Yeah, because my fingers were on the capacitor. So the original one might have been fine. Let's find that. Let's find out if that's true. All right, so here's a little tester off to the side, and we'll put this capacitor in there. The wax all over the pins isn't helping, but anyhow, let's see what it says. It's 104 nanofarads. ESR is a little high, but that should not have been a showstopper for this radio. So, well, this one, the replacement is certainly better. This replacement was probably not necessary. So that's interesting. So let's walk up the chain here a little bit. And maybe we can use this one to check. I mean, so, yeah, that was the right way around. where's our switch? I have my suspicions that that is our problem. So I'm going to go get some contact cleaner. We'll give that a spray. But if this one is okay, then it's quite likely that the others are all right as well. So let's have a look. So what I'm going to do is just give a little quick contact cleaner spray to everything. I think I'll unplug it first because my fingers will be all over this again. It's not dangerous, but still. And then we'll see if that does anything. Then we'll have to get a little bit more inventive in terms of trying to figure out where the problem is. And it's plugged in. Let's turn the power on.
Media and through contributions from...
And it works. We could put on FM.
Back. Hope you're enjoying our profile of the day.
So, it's fixed. The fix, contact cleaner, and the problem, the band switch, which you could probably have just about gotten to from the outside without even taking it apart. So, well, a few things to share about that, right, is sometimes do the most obvious thing first. Often the band switches are the problem on radios, but the other thing is the capacitor. Well, so that was what I was thinking about because that's what the last radio I worked on required. And of course that was in my mind, so I did that without doing the easy and obvious thing first. So in terms of troubleshooting, sometimes you're hurt by what you found the last time. And I'm not the best troubleshooter in the world, but you know, I do kind of know what's likely to be bad in a relatively well cared for radio like this. I'm going to button it back up and we'll give it a try. So I've just been giving this a quick cleanup. Well, of course, we've got driver's license number or something on here. But I was wrong when I said this was an American radio because although you won't be able to see it, upside down here says CSA. So this is a Canadian distributed radio, which makes sense given where this came from. So I've given this a very cursory white coat with a rag, a microfiber cloth, and a little bit of Windex. And you'll see that the improvement in how it looks is really quite significant even for, sorry about that. You can see the LED tuning indicator works just fine. You see the improvement's quite good, but I haven't entirely decided what to do about the battery contacts down here. I mean, part of me just wants to leave them, but I think I'm going to give them a little bit of a clean with some isopropyl alcohol and that sort of stuff, just to kind of get the worst of it off. I don't think this is, the springs are good, and those are the things that tend to get worst. This is, I mean, if I was really serious about this, I'd have taken this out and dealt with it outside the radio, but it's just like, let's arrest it, let's make it not any worse than it is, and then we can consider what to do after that. One of these screws, this one in particular, went in a bit loosely and doesn't seem to tighten very well. It's possible the post is cracked on it. If so, it was before I got the radio. It was very odd coming out too. So again, if you wanted to do more work, you can go in, see what's going on with that, try to glue it back together. But I'm not doing it with this radio right now. So let me continue wiping it off a little bit, and then I'll see what I want to do with that. Okay, well, I've done a quick cleanup. This is nothing more complicated than using a little bit of Windex and one of these clouds. cloths and spending 5 minutes on it. I took the knobs off, of course, and so I was able to give them a little better clean off. In terms of the battery compartment, you can see it's still a little bit damp, but I just washed this out with the Windex again, and then I used some isopropyl alcohol to get the remains of that out. This will probably work okay, and I think it should have arrested the damage. If I wanted to get off all this, so the plating's coming off, right, and the copper underneath is starting to show. If I wanted to get rid of all this, green oxidation, I would have to use acid, and then you'd have to wash the acid off, probably with water carefully, and then you'd go to the isopropyl alcohol to finish it off. I think this is okay for now. I don't think it's going to get any worse. And it doesn't seem to have extended into the circuit board at all, so this is pretty lucky. So I think I'm just going to leave it for now. It's not going to get used with batteries, realistically. All right, so now I've turned the radio around. We have the antennas hooked up. I'll just lay the FM antenna out like that. We're in AM. Let's just have a quick look at what this will do. It's not going to do much at this time of day, but we'll see. I think this might be a very interesting and sensitive radio on medium wave. So if we turn it on, we get the indicator light. That should be 590 here in Toronto, so the dial's spot on.
An Indigenous person would write. I haven't seen that since the early 1980s.
This is probably 640.
Big Foundation representative asking for cash in the downtown core. Toronto police began
So this
the
is probably
investigation in early November,
680.
following reports from residents at a
So
downtown apartment building.
far,
Here's a sample from hot space.
this is not a good spot here with the electronics around.
Tax cut, then we screwed ourselves because instead of
We're open to the debate. We want to hear what they have to say.
Complete greatest player of all time.
on some of the best.
And worst.
So AM or medium wave seems to be working very well. There's some hints that it's pulling in things from a distance. And this switch is absolutely locked. So it's AM only at the moment. Tone works, volume works, sounds pretty good. I would like to be able to use FM, but we'll see. Well, the problem is, as I said before, that this switch is, I can't really fix this at the moment because the only electronics cleaner I have is your residue, which is great for many things, but it's got no lubricants in it. And what this needs is this needs lubricants. Probably the lubricant in it was entirely caked. I dissolved it out with this, and so it's working, but by the time you're trying to use this long plastic bit that attaches to the switch to control it, it's not working. So I need to go back in with a lubricated contact cleaner to fix this. So I'm going to say this is done at the moment. It's a pretty smart AM radio. It looks pretty nice. It's unfortunate that the handle was damaged. I think this might be a very interesting AM radio for distance use. We'll have to try that out and see what it does, maybe at night, see whether the usual stuff comes in and whether it might be more sensitive than some of the other radios I've got around. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my sort of fussing around and what ended up being a very simple fix for this Panasonic radio. And expect another video in a little while about this radio when I try to get that band switch to work again, work better, and then we'll try to do some nighttime medium wave distance work with this and see how it goes. Thanks again.